I guess I can just tell you about the project that I am working on, because I am trying to
Sure.
instantiate something in real life. So the background of it, when I went after high school, I went to this discipleship program. It was basically like an internship at a church, so you can learn how to work at a church in theory. Um, it had some things it was good at, some other things not so great. One of the problems is that you are not leaving with either college credit or actual job training. So it's a little bit of a, I mean, unless if you want to work at a church, but it's good for personal, it was good for personal development, but uh, that was kind of a drawback. Um, there are statistics that a lot of less young men are going to college these days because it's pointless. Unless if you are really good academically, but if you're average or whatever, or that's not something that's interesting, it's a waste of time. But they're not necessarily being funneled into useful jobs. So now, with my experience that I've had working construction, training guys and stuff, I'm trying to combine these two ideas. So, um, sort of a Bible training by means of learning construction trades. So, I can do carpentry, but I'm hoping to get other people involved who can teach other things. So, maybe like in the course of a 1-year program, you get a little sample of all these things. You might find out, oh, I really love plumbing. I want to do that. And then you have somebody that you can apprentice with longer term. If not, you've actually gained useful skills in the year. And I even thought for those who want to go work in churches, most people who go to college don't realize that if you're the pastor of a small church, a la PVK, a lot of that job is things like building maintenance or, fixing stuff at the elderly people's houses. I mean, this was my whole youth was spent mowing people's lawns and shoveling their driveways and all this stuff. So, and my dad, who was the pastor, would go over there and fix stuff. And, that's just the reality of it. And you don't learn that in college. So, so this is my goal, is to create a program to kind of put those things together. Because even though I was thinking, like, you have the Bible's full of all these metaphors of like how things in life relate to spiritual things. And the problem now is not that we don't understand the spiritual things, because people go on YouTube and have conversations about it all the time. It's that they don't have any knowledge of the basic things. They don't know how to build anything. They don't know anything about farming or, relationships. So they actually have to learn the mundane material side of the metaphor to understand the other side of it. So,
yeah, I like that. And again, this goes back to that problem. Like, they don't know spirituality, right?
Yeah.
They know propositions about spirituality.
Yeah.
But you can't know spirituality propositionally at all because it's participation. So you want to do a trade school that's based around the biblical tradition, right? And weave those two things together, which I think, I think it's safe to say that's pretty brilliant. That's a great idea. Like, because that is what we need. We need more engagement in participation, right? Because the problem has been, we put people in school, we tell them they're smart, we give them a bunch of propositions and say, see, you have all these propositions, you're smart. Just like, oh my good, like, you're making basic mistakes that any fourth grader should know better.
3 hours later.
So when you're reinstilling those two things together, you're saying, here's the Bible, right? And here's how it relates to this trade, this physical action in the world. It doesn't have to be a trade, it could be anything, but I like your concept of making it into a useful trade. That makes all the difference in the world. So I really like that idea.
Yeah, as I have been developing it, obviously it could go a lot of different ways. And I think, like, if I gain some modicum of success and can have, buy some land to build a nice shop and things like that, then you could have a farm, or gardens or whatever. You could have craft stuff, pottery and all these things, and people could, do that. But I think also there is kind of a, like, I remember, like, when I had my first job, I was like 14. I started working I remember, like, the hardest day of work of my life. I was 14 and I was with this other kid who was 15, and we unloaded an entire tractor trailer of bales of hay and straw. And that was the hardest day of work of my life. And I was 14 years old, and that I was able to do it. It was really hard. I would not, you'd have to pay me a lot more. I got paid $5.35 an hour to do that, but, like, that's even just the thing of, like, because I've had guys come and start our company, and some of them, it's like they see, oh, like, I didn't go to college, but now I have this opportunity. This is great. I can make a career, and they're doing awesome. And some guys that are like, oh, this is hard, and they show up like 2 days a week, and then they quit after a month. And, it's just, that you need that experience of, like, doing something hard and realizing, like, you can push yourself to the limit. And just even, like, in that physical work is a necessary and unknown skill amongst young people today. Because certainly you could do something like that and then decide, like, I don't want to do that. But then even within the trades, there's still people who run the businesses and people who do the finances and people who make the sales and all that stuff. So you don't have to be, that's what everybody starts doing when their knees get worn out. So.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, I like that idea of combining or bringing back the participation, right? So your education isn't strictly propositional, or it isn't strictly procedural, right? It isn't strictly, oh, I'm going to look at this like a carpenter would, right? It's also all about this idea of actually physically making something happen. I mean, one of the strengths, in my opinion, of Jordan Peterson that people really don't give enough credit to, because he's such a pragmatist: clean your room. Like, physically do things in the world just so that you can learn you have agency again. Because a lot of people just act like they have no agency. So one of the videos that's being edited right now while I'm doing nothing, because I'm able to have a nice person volunteer his video editing skills, is on capitalism, where a lot of people just blame capitalism for their failure. And they're like, well, it's capitalism's fault that I don't have more money. It's like, well, no, capitalism's the thing that allows anybody to have money equally, right? Like, it gives you equal access to capital. That's what it does. Like, so what it really does is shine on your failure. Like, because if you don't have money in the capitalist system, it's hard to blame other conditions, which is not to say there are no other conditions to blame and they don't have influences, but it's not the capitalism holding you back, because capitalism is literally the freedom to earn, right? That's really what it is. It's the freedom to earn and the equal treatment of people, but people treat it as though it's something shackling them, when in fact what's shackling them is their inaction. It's like, well, I can't get a raise at work. Have you asked for one? Because a lot of people can just ask for one and get one, especially if they really are good workers. And like, I never come in and listen to people and go, oh, that's because he doesn't work hard, but occasionally I ask them, well, do you think Elon Musk earned his money? And they're like, no, probably not. Like, he had all these things. And I'm like, do you sleep under your desk at work? Have you ever done that? It's like, well, but Elon Musk did. So maybe doing that would, would get you closer to where he's at. And they don't have a sense for that, because they're stuck in this propositional hell, roughly speaking, where everything's happening up here. And then they're coming up with these, well, I'm an anarcho-capitalist. It's like, no, you're not. Like, just stop. These are not real things you can be, right? But what you can do is participate in the world and find out what you can be in the world. And that's the strength of Peterson, is he says, no. You may be lost. You may not know. You may have no meaning, right? You may have no map of meaning. But you can explore the territory by actually going and cleaning your room. And all of a sudden you can start to create that meaning, right? You can start to interface with things. You can start to take control of your life back. right? And the only thing that's been holding you back is your inaction because you're afraid of things, or you imagine that you're being shackled by ghosts and by creatures that aren't there, roughly speaking.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I keep thinking over and over about the parable where Jesus talks about, the three guys, and he gives one guy 5 coins, and he gives one guy 2 coins, he gives one guy 1, and the guy with 5 makes 5 more, and the guy with 2 makes 2 more, and the guy with the 1 is like, well, I hid it because I was afraid and I knew you were coming back. And that's the thing, is everybody's like looking at the person who got the better hand in life or whatever, and saying, because I didn't get that, like, well, yeah, you didn't get that, but you have something, and do something with your something. And then even if he, it's like we only I was thinking about, like, we only hear the one outcome of the master was really upset that he just hid it in a handkerchief or whatever. So it's like, if he had invested it and got nothing, would the master have been mad? Probably not, because he would have said, you learned a valuable lesson about what kind of an investment, not an investment not to make, or whatever. You tried, and stuff doesn't always work out that way. But it's that thing of it's this denial of our own responsibility,
Agency.
Pretending
it's our own agency. Yeah.
Or pretending like we didn't, but pretending like we didn't know that we do have the ability to do something. So
yeah, exactly.